Welcome back. Over the last few months, there's been a global reckoning against racism, a growing awareness and continuing conversation about the realities that Black, Indigenous, and people of color face in our modern world, including, of course, right here at home in Canada. Today, we've brought together a panel of incredible Indigenous creators to share their experiences with us. Let me introduce to you our panelists. We've got designer and artist Sage Paul, producer and actor Sarah Podemski, and fashion designer Lesley Hampton. Thank you so much for joining us today, all of you. And I want to start with a question about representation, or the lack thereof, in Canada. Sarah, let's start with you.
I think we have a lot of work to do in the film and television and media area. We know that people are very influenced by what they see in the media while they're watching films and television. And our stories have mostly been told from a white perspective, settler perspective. And I think there's a lot of work to do to allow us to be able to write, produce, direct, and star in projects that we feel represent our narrative. And there's a lot of power in that, and there is a lot of power in the storytelling that we can share when we tell it from our perspective.
It's a whole different ballgame. You know, it's going from being a character to being the actual storyteller. And so that makes so much sense to me, Sarah. Let me take it to Sage. Sage, what do you think? Where is diversity lacking most in Canada?
I think diversity is lacking in the way that we work together. This is such a huge question, and it would be impossible to try to answer it all now, but I think behind the scenes where, you know, we want to see people in positions of leadership, decision-making positions, but also the way that we work together. We work in a very colonial way where we understand how fashion runs, for example, but in the way that Indigenous fashion works is there's a lot of gratitude for the land, where our resources come from, the amount of time and work and the knowledge, the generational knowledge that comes with the garments that we're creating, and we don't see that in mainstream fashion. And I think there's an opportunity to bring diverse people together, and not just to have our faces there to be present, but also to share the way that we are working, change our processes, change our systems, so we can see a future where we are all celebrated in a way that is reciprocal.
I like that you said that, Sage, going beyond the window dressing to roles that are decision-making roles. That's the important part. Lesley Hampton, let me tell you a story about Lesley. When I was doing a talk about my fashion label at George Brown College, Lesley was in the classroom. I believe it was George Brown. Did I know that this woman was responsible for her own incredible fashion label? No, I did not. You were a lovely student. You were so polite. You have done incredibly, Lesley. I'm going to throw the question to you now. Where do we need to focus on when it comes to diversity in Canada?
I think representation is going to be a huge step forward for us. Representation in film, in fashion, and in advertising, for Indigenous people to tell their own stories through these networks would be a great way to show society who we are beyond what the textbook history book has explained of our people. I think seeing different body types and skin tones in mainstream fashion and mainstream media and advertising is going to be a great way to show what we have to offer and to show how we can all move forward as a society.
Another huge question now. We need to talk about the reality of Indigenous lives right now, because I think Canadians don't even know how much they don't even know. And so the situation right now when it comes to Indigenous lives, where are we? Where do we need to go? And unfortunately, we have to tackle this problem in a couple of minutes, but I'm going to go back to Sarah. Where are we when it comes to Indigenous lives? Where do we need to go?
I think we have a full celebration of Canada in the sense that, we celebrate certain inquiries, or that, our stories are on the news, and there's just not enough to back up the work that still needs to be done. And I think before we have reconciliation, we have to have truth. We have to have truth about the genocide that happened in this country, who perpetrated it. The birth of the RCMP essentially was to eradicate Indigenous people from the land as the westward expansion happened. So, we have these structures in place where our communities don't feel safe, we don't feel heard, we don't feel taken care of, which is something that maybe settler Canadians have a privilege of, being able to feel like these institutions are taking care of them. So I think we need to talk about the truth of how this system was built, essentially to eradicate us, our voices, our medicine, and our relationship with the land. So I think as soon as we start acknowledging those things, then we can start talking about reconciliation. But the truth needs to happen, and that conversation needs to happen with Canadians, and it needs to happen through big media outlets that people are listening to and they're watching. It's really, the media has to cover the truth of the country of Canada.
We have a huge responsibility. The media, governmental systems, education, it all needs to happen where we're really sort of acknowledging the extent of the atrocities that have happened and are happening right now. If we're looking forward, what is the way forward? How do we start to change the narrative?
Again, there needs to be systemic changes. It's a terrifying time when I think about brothers and sisters in the Indigenous community whose lives are lost at the hands of the RCMP. It's scary to be an Indigenous person, and that's just not right. Like I said, there just needs to be systemic changes where all lives are protected, where Indigenous lives are protected, Black lives are protected, and right now that's just not happening, and we need to see that change in the police system, in the education system, in marketing, just across the board.
In what's happening right now globally, Lesley, looking at the unrest all around the world about Black Lives Matter, is the Indigenous question being looked at enough? Is the Indigenous question gathering any steam with this movement in full swing right now? What do you think?
I would say absolutely. I think Black Lives Matter and Indigenous sovereignty work hand in hand, and both communities help each other build up, and we share each other's stories and each other's struggles. The system wasn't really made to include either of our peoples. So I think looking at that systemic change and systemic racism to put towards change is a really important topic. And I think both communities uplift each other. And I think for people who are maybe not part of those communities to assess their own privilege and to start looking at ways personally you can change and change your understanding and perhaps behavior, and then have that go from there to your circles and then hopefully to society as a whole.
Lesley, Sarah, Sage, I'd like to say that this is just the beginning of the conversation. We are just scraping the surface of the issues and the reality, but I so appreciate all of your viewpoints on the show today. Thank you all for joining us.